Before K-dramas became a global obsession, they were something deeply personal. They were stories told in small living rooms about love, pain, family, and hope. No glitz, no glam, just a lot of heart. This is how Korea's humble TV dramas grew from quiet comfort into cultural powerhouses that now tug at hearts around the world. Before K-dramas conquered the world, their humble beginnings traced back to the 1970s and 80s. Back then, most dramas aired on state-run channels. Budgets were a little tight, resources were limited, and everything looked pretty bare bones. But even without the flash or fancy sets, those early shows packed a punch. What they lacked in spectacle, they made up for in raw emotion in stories about love, loss, sacrifice, and redemption, all grounded in everyday Korean life. These weren't just escapist fantasies. They reflected the struggles of a country still healing after war, trying to get on its feet economically, and racing through modernization. And people connected with that deeply. By the 90s, K-dramas weren't just TV shows anymore, they were a part of daily life. Huge titles like What is Love and Sandglass didn't just entertain, they sparked real conversations across the country. Sandglass especially changed the game. It was gritty, political, and unafraid to tackle Korea's authoritarian past. And it worked. It pulled in record-breaking audiences and proved that television could be bold, even subversive. Suddenly, dramas were more than just something to watch after dinner, they were cultural events. These shows became mirrors of Korean society. Family dramas highlighted generational clashes, melodramas explored class divides. Even the romantic storylines, sometimes criticized for being cheesy or predictable, were actually tapping into deeper themes: gender roles, social pressure, and the gap between the rich and everyone else. That classic rich boy meets ordinary girl setup, it wasn't just a trope, it was a reflection of real worries about class and mobility. And K-dramas did something smart with structure too. Instead of dragging stories out for seasons on end like Western shows, they kept it tight, usually 16 to 20 episodes. Beginning, middle, end. No filler. Just a solid, emotional arc that left people hooked and satisfied. By the early 2000s, K-dramas weren't just popular, they were ritual. Families gathered in front of the TV after dinner. Characters became household names. Plot twists made headlines. Even before global audiences tuned in, K-dramas had already won over the most important crowd, the Korean people themselves. In the same early 2000s, something unexpected happened. K-dramas started to spread beyond South Korea. People were beginning to share bootleg VHS tapes, burning DVDs, adding fan-made subtitles, and passing them around. Word of mouth did all the heavy lifting, and before you knew it, the Hallyu wave, or the Korean wave, quietly began. One show kicked off this cultural ripple: Winter Sonata. Even when it had all the classic ingredients, love, a tragic accident, and a little bit of amnesia, it somehow still hit differently. The emotions felt real, and viewers in Japan, China, and across Southeast Asia were hooked. But beyond the craze, it wasn't just about liking a show, it was cultural curiosity. People started paying attention to how characters dressed, how they spoke, and what they ate. Korean fashion, beauty, even snippets of language started showing up in daily life across Asia. But here's the real magic. It wasn't just about the plot lines, it was the feeling K-dramas gave people. Unlike Hollywood, which often goes for action, irony, or big explosions, K-dramas lean into softness, emotional buildup, lingering glances, long conversations, and sincere storytelling. That emotional vulnerability resonated. It stuck with people. Soon, K-dramas became more than entertainment. They were the entry point to the whole universe of the Korean entertainment industry, such as K-pop, Korean skincare, fashion, and even food. Its popularity became so undeniable that the Korean government even saw the potential. So they started investing in cultural exports, supporting dramas, festivals, and even production houses. However, it wasn't just about fun and games and entertaining, because somehow its soft power of storytelling turned into one of Korea's biggest cultural assets. And while the first wave mostly stayed within Asia, it was clear this wasn't going to stop there. Because waves don't just stay in one place. They keep building, they crash into new shores. And K-dramas were just getting started. If the early 2000s marked the first wave of K-dramas across Asia, what came next was on a completely different level. Because suddenly, people weren't just watching TV the old way anymore. Cable is dead, and streaming began to take over. Platforms like Viki and Netflix blew the doors wide open. No more hunting down pirated DVDs or digging through sketchy forums just to find fan-made subtitles. Now, with just a few clicks, anyone, literally anywhere, could dive into a K-drama. And that kind of access, well, it changed everything. Viki was one of the early trailblazers. Fans from all over the world helped translate episodes in real time, making the stories even more accessible. But then, Netflix came in and took things to a whole new level. They didn't just make K-dramas available, they were front and center, now towards a larger scale of a global audience. Suddenly, Korean dramas weren't just some niche thing people stumbled upon, they were what everyone was talking about. Take Crash Landing on You. A story about a North Korean soldier and a South Korean heiress sounds like a hard sell, right? But it became a massive hit, not just in Korea, but everywhere. People all over the world got swept up in the emotional roller coaster. And no, this isn't an exaggeration. People really did. And then came Squid Game, a gritty, high-stakes survival drama that took over the world. Everyone was watching, everyone was talking about it, and within weeks, it became Netflix's biggest series ever. Streaming didn't just make K-dramas available, it made them impossible to ignore. Algorithms started recommending them to new viewers. Clips and reactions exploded on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. And slowly, a new wave of global audiences fell in love. Not just with the plot twists, but with the feeling of it all. The slower pacing, the emotional buildup, the visuals, the sincerity, it all stood out. Because at the core, nothing really changed. K-dramas were still doing what they've always done, telling heartfelt stories with care and depth. The only difference now, the whole world was watching. And for the longest time, Hollywood was the gold standard.
It's not what you did, son, that angers me, son. It's who you did it to.
Who? The fucking nobody?
The fucking nobody. It's Joey.
Big explosions, bigger heroes, stories that sprinted towards some jaw-dropping finale. And for a while, that was thrilling and it was everything we thought entertainment was supposed to be. But over time, something started to feel off. All that noise, that speed, that spectacle. Hollywood began to feel like the heart of storytelling was getting lost somewhere in the chaos. And that's when K-dramas quietly stepped in. Not to compete with Hollywood, but to offer something different, something softer and more human. Imagine two characters sitting in silence on a park bench with just small glances and a soft piano playing in the background. Nothing is said, but everything is felt. That's the magic of K-dramas. They don't rush, and they don't yell to be heard. They tell you to breathe, because in K-dramas, relationships aren't fast-forwarded. They're unraveled, layer by layer. And people noticed. But this isn't just about love stories. K-dramas have also dug deep into characters. For example, a cold-hearted CEO slowly becomes more tender. A shy girl finds her courage. A broken family learns to hold each other again. K-dramas don't pretend life is always exciting. They show it as it really is. They talk about family pressure, about grief, about friendship, guilt, resilience, regret, about the things we all go through, even if we don't always talk about them. And for viewers who've grown tired of the glossy chaos of Western media, K-dramas feel like a deep exhale, like coming home to something real. That's why so many people didn't just watch K-dramas, they fell into them, craved them, found comfort in them. By now, it's pretty clear that K-dramas have taken over hearts everywhere. But seriously, what is it that makes them so addictive? Well, honestly, it's the formula, but it's not in a tired, cookie-cutter kind of way. Yeah, sure, most K-dramas have a rhythm. The cute first meeting, the slow-burn romance, the emotional build-up, the twist that hits you out of nowhere. And even though you kind of expect it, you still end up yelling at your screen or crying into your blanket. And somehow, it doesn't get old. But what's cool is that it's not just stuck in one lane. K-dramas have grown, like, a lot. They're way more risky and ambitious, mixing in all kinds of genres with better production, smarter writing, and casting that really pulls you in. There's something for literally everyone now. Crime shows, fantasy, medical dramas, slice of life, historical stuff, name it, it's there. But even with all that variety, they still stay true to what makes K-dramas feel like K-dramas. The emotion, the subtle moments, the little things that just hit different. And it's not just about the stories, it's about how they're told. They don't explain everything, they just show it, and you feel it. And honestly, that's the thing. It's not just some formula, it's attention to detail, it's storytelling with heart. Because even if you've seen 100 similar plots, somehow, it still gets you. It still feels new, it still feels real. Enjoyed this video? Tap here next to discover the K-dramas that flopped in Korea but blew up internationally. You won't believe which ones made the list.